everyone, happy Friday. Welcome back to Guidebook Greenroom. We are continuing our event planning mini series where we gather perspectives from event planners across the event industry. And I'm very excited for our guest today. Jeff, it's great to see you. Would you mind kind of introducing yourself and telling us about the events you manage?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. My name is Jeff Young. I'm director of camps for Music for All, and we're an events organization as well as an advocacy organization for music education in the U.S. And sometimes we have groups participating from other countries as well. But part of what we do is we run uh, a lot of the marching band championships across the country. And then we have the Grand National Championships in Indianapolis every year. And so we spend a great deal of time planning those events, and we've got an amazing events team. My particular role within the organization is I'm in charge of our summer camp. It's the largest summer camp for music students in the U.S., at least the week-long one. I think there are some other camps where 6 week long camps and things like that have lots of students go through it. But I think we're the largest 1 week camp for music in the United States. It's held at Ball State University, which is in Muncie, Indiana, and we have about 1,000 students. We have also kind of a parallel track running at our camp for band directors, color guard instructors, percussion instructors as well. So we've got about 200 adults going to camp as well as about 1,000 students at the same time.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, that's a lot of different people and different perspectives within your attendees, I guess. And I'm curious, of events that size and the audience you serve, how do you kind of think about the goals for your event? Like what excites you about the different people that you're building these events for, and ultimately like what makes the event so special?
I mean, it's positively life changing for sure. At the end of the week, these students they're they're taught by the best teachers in the country, and not just like from an academic standpoint. Like people have degrees from university and that titles and doctorates and things like. But we really pick the best teachers that are kid magnets. So for me, seeing by the end of the week, the fact that they're taught by these great people, and they want to come back the next year. The other thing that's really important to us at the Bands of America Summer Camp is leadership. And so we start with a leadership weekend, which is kind of an optional add-on to our camp. Usually about 60% of the camp chooses to come 2 days early and do a leadership boot camp. But then even students who don't go to that, every single day, each of our divisions gets to work on their leadership skills. And that way, when they go back to their own bands, it's kind of, I like to say it's kind of like diffusion, where a small drop of dye can dye an entire container of liquid. This one student can make a difference in their group when they go home. And we represent. I think last year we had 43 out of the 50 United States represented at our camp. So it's very diverse in terms of geographic. Some students travel hundreds of miles. Obviously a lot of them fly when they're that far away, but we definitely represent the entire country. Now, Midwest is vastly, the most students at our camp. The donut around Indiana, kind of in the Midwest, is the main bulk of our students. But from a director camp standpoint, they come from everywhere. It's not just a Midwest thing. We bring in the finest teachers of educators. And so again, it just all comes back to leadership and teaching positively life-changing experiences.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And I guess you have so many people coming from different places and, the logistical challenge of all of that. I mean, I guess if without going too granular, but like, how do you approach the planning of an event of such scale with so many moving parts?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people that I run a summer camp, and they're like, "What else do you do?" And I'm like, "No, like I plan a camp year round." You know, now is it, am I working, 80 hours a week every week of the year. No, but it comes in fits and starts. But
Mm.
um, I approach it in kind of buckets. First is division coordinators, and these are, for example, Nola Jones is a fantastic music educator and leader in that space. She is in charge of the teachers of the directors, right? So her faculty is like the creme de la creme, the literally best people that teach teachers, right? And then Chris Kaflik is a division coordinator over the marching band division. So he chooses what faculty he's going to use. So we start with that bucket of division coordinators, and then it moves on to working with them to choose the right faculty, basically approving or saying, yeah, maybe not that one. But they have a lot of responsibility to find the best people. Um, and then going out from, so once we have that, then we also have director of participant experience. We have 4 registered nurses on campus, and then we have a whole team of volunteers called the swag team. And our swags are volunteers from all over the country. There's 42 of them, all volunteer. They stay with us for 10 days straight, and they're at every session with students. They do night check-ins. When anybody needs anything in terms of nursing or care, they're the front lines there. Literally could not run our camp without this swag team. And so we have a division coordinator for the swags as well, and she's in charge of choosing them and all that. So that's people. People is a huge bucket. The next thing would be a location. We were at Illinois State University for a while. Now we're at Ball State University, and we use every nook and cranny of the spaces. So, our events team led by Laura Blake, she determines what rooms are we going to use? What's the rain plan for each site? And then we're looking at, okay, this division we thought was going to be 125 kids. Now it's 300 kids. What do we do now with spaces? So, that's a big part of it. And then there's a whole other bucket of scheduling, right? So we're looking at, each division, what do they all do? Breakfast, lunch, dinner. We have nightly concerts every night that everybody goes to. And we're not talking about like your average summer camp where somebody's strumming a guitar. Like Monday night, we have the Yamaha Young Performing Artists concert, and then we have Boston Brass. We have the Army Jazz Ambassadors. We actually have a Saturday Night Live comedian named Fred Armisen who's performing on Thursday night, this whole music and comedy routine. Friday night, we've got a big drum corps show. So all those schedules for the adults and the students is a huge bucket as well. And then there's just the website. And then there's, our internal team of marketing and communication, our team that for donations and scholarships and funding. We've got a whole team, a finance team. So, budgeting is really important. This is over $1 million budget. So yeah, it's big. Lots of moving parts.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going into that. And one of the things I picked up on there is just, you mentioned people and how important people are. And, I think that's ultimately what events are about, whether it's the people behind the scenes making it happen or the people who are attending and hopefully, getting a life-changing experience or getting a career-changing experience, whatever it may be. So that's super cool. I mean, also the event sounds great. I'd love to come if I didn't live so far away. I'd be trying
Yeah.
trying to wrangle myself in there. But I'm curious, just stepping away beyond your event and kind of looking as an event planner at the industry as a whole. Are there any trends in event management that you kind of are paying attention to? Is there anything kind of happening in the space that you're interested in how that might develop or support your event going forward?
Well, if I'm being completely honest, our events team at Music for All, led by Laura Blake, is like on the pulse of all of that. I see myself as more of an administrator of, once we get to camp, I'm like, I don't even know what to do because they're doing their job and they're doing their, so I'm kind of more of an administrator of that. But Laura and her team, they go to the national event planning conferences. I usually attend the American Camp Association gatherings that happen, and never been to their national conference. But for me, it's really all about student experience and participant experience and safety, and making sure that it's positively life changing. I'm not as much of an expert as those folks are.
Well, maybe we can ping them on LinkedIn and have them chime in on a comment or
Yeah,
two.
Laura would be great to have on. Yeah.
Perfect. I do want to ask some of the challenges or opportunities you are tackling through this event, right? Like upskilling these students and these adults coming to camp as well. Creating an incredible life-changing experience, the power of music, like all of these things. Why do you need an event to make it happen? Like, why is this type of event the avenue you choose to invest in? Like, why not leaning into websites or social media or other ways to engage with your audience? Like, what's unique about the event experience that really works?
Camp is a unique experience. The friendships that you develop at camp are different than the friendships you develop naturally in your own, in backyard, in your own schools. It's a I'm completely exhausted. I'm going through the same thing as everyone around me. Everyone around me is as nerdy about this particular topic as I am. And at the end of the week, you see students hugging and crying and saying, I'll text you. Um, and they just met 4 or 5 days earlier. And so
Mhm.
for me, camp is much more about those deep relationships that you build with others around something you're both passionate about. I think you can't, you know, we have students who come and on Friday night when we have the drum corps show, our marching band students get to perform with a drum and bugle corps called Carolina Crown. And this is to be like, if you don't know anything about drum corps versus marching band, it'd be like the NBA versus college basketball, right?
Gotcha.
Drum corps are, they're in their, average age 20, and they're, more advanced in some ways in the marching arts. And so when our students get to perform with them, for some of our students, this is maybe the finest performance experience they're ever going to have. With many students who come from small schools,
Mhm.
from schools that aren't successful competitively. We have just as many students who come from the best high school band programs in the country. But, you know, for some of those students, it's probably the pinnacle of their musical career so far. And they're going to go home and they're going to talk about it, and they're going to make their own home programs better. So, what we're doing, like I said, with that diffusion, is that we're creating this passionate group of kids who actually learned skills too, and they're going back to their home groups and making them better. It's just you can't do that through a website.
That's so inspiring. I have another thing I want to dig into because quite a feew event planners we speak with, like the event management is one aspect of their career. Whereas, like you were saying, you get to think about this and work on this and focus on this year round, and you have this dedicated staff, and then of course the volunteers that are devoting a lot of time and energy, and it can be a full-time job, right? If that's the nature of the organization you join. What is that like? Like,
Mhm.
how do you find an opportunity where you get to devote yourself to putting on one really, really incredible event uh, without a million other hats to wear?
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if it was just I found it, right? It was 25 years of teaching high school and caring about the process. And I was I was ready to leave the classroom before COVID. COVID was like a point in time where many people, the great resignation, the great moving of careers, and I was kind of a part of that, but I was ready for it before then.
Mhm.
And I'd been teaching at this camp since 2000. two or three. And so for me, it was like every summer I knew I was going to teach this camp, but it was more than that because it was like seven of my best friends from all over the
Mhm.
country. We all taught this division of camp together. And then, like somebody would put in the group me in the middle of the year, like, only 180 days till we get to do this again. Like I'm not even kidding. Like we were that jazzed about doing it, right? And
Mhm.
so when I had the opportunity, when we kind of met after COVID, and we're like, how are we going to bring this camp back after COVID? Like, I mean, the same thing. Churches had these guys. People are going to church online. How do we ever get
Mhm.
them back in the building, right? And so we were having this discussion, and part of that discussion was somebody in the office needs to think about camp only.
Mhm.
That way, all questions go through this person, all answers come through this person. Not that I do all the work, it's far from it, right? But I'm kind of like this filter that the questions go through and from, so that at least one person knows all the aspects of what was going on. Because before, our events team knew every detail of every nook and cranny of Ball State University, how we were going to use it, when we were going to use it, what the schedule is, all that, right? This whole other team in our office, the education team, they knew who the faculty was, where they were coming from, and then they'd have to go, okay, events, hey, here's the travel plans for all these 100 faculty from all over the country. You know, the travel budget for our camp, I have to add it up, but we're talking like average flights these days are $450, right?
Right.
So we got 100 faculty and at least half of them fly in. So like you can imagine the scale of this thing. And then, the marketing and communications team is like, how do we market camp?
Mhm.
And so now I have the opportunity to go, here's this year, for the next few years, our camp, we're going to use the phrase reach beyond as our advertising campaign, right? We're reaching beyond our limits and becoming better, right? And so I'm able to just be the person and be like, keeping that marketing plan on track. Other people are doing all of that work of the creative, the social media posting, the emails. So it's been really cool that I just over the years just kind of got to the point where it was like, yeah, this is the perfect job for Jeff to do to get us
Mhm.
back on track after COVID. And so fortunate. I loved teaching. I love this job even more.
That's amazing. Yeah, and just kind of like love the story and the narrative that's brought you from, where you began and to really owning and loving what you do. And I think that's, the best thing about it, right, is the passion you have for the role you get to undertake. And I just want to come back to the event overall, one last time. Just I'm curious, back to the fact that there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of different components to the event that you create. How do you think about and measure success of an event like you organize?
I think the bummer answer to that is, did we meet budget? It's like we said there were going to be 900 kids, and we got last year 899, and our budget number was 900, right? So this year we're aiming for 1,025, and if we hit 1,025, that's success. That's such a lame answer though, because you know, does my CFO care about that? Absolutely, right? But that's not my main thing. My main thing is, you know, the experience.
Mhm.
That's why we have Patrick at camp as our director of participant experience. He's kind of like the person who takes the pulse of the faculty and the students and hypes everybody up, but also calms people down and, connects people. And, so that role to me, like Patrick telling me everything's going great, is the goal of camp.
Mhm.
Those students, when they fill out their evaluations and they go, oh my God, I thought this was just going to be band camp. It's way better than that. The personal anecdotes that we get to collect at the end of camp, that's what's important. It's important that we have a nationally respected brand. Um, we're supported our camp is presented by Yamaha Corporation of America. They make a huge contribution and just of their time and their effort and their finances to help music programs all over the country. It's important that we uphold that, those standards of excellence and reputation, so that companies like Yamaha will continue to partner with us. Sweetwater is a huge partner of ours. They're a company that both sells musical instruments, but they also do a huge rental program for musical instruments across the country. And they partner with us because they see that we we are serving their patrons as well, right? We're serving the people that purchase from them and rent from them, and that they want to be involved with us because, we're giving these positively life-changing experience to students and directors that they also want to help and be a good resource for.
Amazing. I have one last question for you, Jeff, which is, what advice do you have? Like, based on what makes your event work so well, and based on the partnerships that you have nurtured with Yamaha, Sweetwater, and others, what advice do you have for other event planners who might be tuning in?
Oh, that's a great question. And honestly, I thought we were going to talk a lot about how we use Guidebook in this because, we're talking to the Guidebook folks, but
Mhm.
you know, I feel like for me, like Guidebook is the public facing portion of our camp in addition to our website. And so we had to get the camp right and then put the schedule and the faculty and all the things in Guidebook in a way that people know is professional. Like they open it and they're like, okay, I'm at a really professionally run camp, right?
Mhm.
But all the work leading up to that is way more important,
Mhm.
like the faculty, the schedules, the marketing, the finances, all those things, like just really taking your goal and breaking it down into those buckets of importance and the steps that it needs to take to get there, and then using your website and using Guidebook as a way to um, organize it in a way that people can understand and appreciate, um, is important. But also the mission of camp is first. you
Mhm.
know we're serving teachers, we're developing leadership skills, we are developing musicianship skills, artistry, we're developing those things. And also you get to go to concerts at night and you get to eat college food and sleep in a college dorm and be away from your family for a week, all that stuff, camp type stuff. But for me, the mission comes first.
That's incredible. I purposely did not bring up Guidebook because I was curious where it fits into the story for you. And I love how you express that, right? Like the why is so vital, and then the how you'll figure out, right? You'll figure out which tools you need to support the why. And we are privileged to support you in service of those goals. So I really,
Oh
really
yeah,
appreciate your time.
we're very thankful for Guidebook. We tried a bunch of options, and for us, there were certain features that we did not want.
Mhm.
We do not want our high school and middle school students messaging each other without friend requesting. We didn't want an open messaging service within our system at all,
Right.
um, both from a legal perspective, an ethical perspective, and just headache perspective, right? So, that was one of the things where we cannot have that turned
Mhm.
on. And Guidebook was like, yeah, all right, just turn it off. And so, and then last year I was like, hey, I really wish there was a way a team could work on the schedule together. And
Mhm.
Guidebook was like, oh, well, we have a, Zapier connection to Google Sheets that you could use. And so
Mhm.
I think, working with us on things we need. Oh, another thing I said was, you know, with this many students whose parents are at home, I need to be able to send more messages
Mhm.
if emergency happened. And Guidebook was like, here's more messaging. It was like, oh, okay, cool. All I had to do was ask. Yeah. So, for us, there's a number of scheduling and conference apps that do
Mhm.
very similar things, but our list of must have and must not haves led us to you. So
Yeah,
Wonderful. Go
that's
ahead.
great. No, no, sorry, I was gonna say that's great to hear. And Jeff, I mean, firstly, thank you for coming and chatting with us today. And for me, it's been great. I always get a kick out of people who are organizing events that were completely far from the type of events that I used to organize when I was, in the event planning world. But then also people who just deeply believe in and love what they do. And you sound so purpose and mission driven. So yeah, it's been great learning a little bit more about your experience and the events that you run. And we really appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us on today's Guidebook Green Room.
absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks. We'll see you all next Friday.